Hello and welcome to the Cat Who Project, and in today's episode we are exploring the mysteries and the murder in The Cat Who Ate Danish Modern. So there are lots of juicy mysteries to be solved in Book 2, but the three main mysteries we will be talking about in today's episode are: who set up the police raid on the Allison house to embarrass the Daily Fluxion's new weekly supplement, Gracious Abodes, who stole George Tate's jade collection and why, and the biggest mystery of all, who murdered David Like. So who set up the police raid on the Allison house? Quillerin had visited Mrs. Middy's studio in hope of finding a house to feature at short notice in Gracious Abodes. Mrs. Middy's assistant, Ella Coke Wright, or Cokie as we know her, suggested the Allison house. The Allison house was described as a residence for career girls. But unfortunately for Gracious Abodes, the Allison house turns out to be a disorderly house, and this is discovered the day after the publication, when a police raid is executed on Allison house, leaving the Daily Flux and Quillerin highly embarrassed. So was the police raid just a bit of bad luck? Certainly not. At one point, Quillerin even suspects poor Cokie, but it turned out to be the rival newspaper, the Morning Rampage. To organise a conveniently timed police raid, a sizable donation was given to the Police Widows Fund by the Penniman Foundation. And who owns the Morning Rampage? Well, that would be the Pennimans. Now, for our second mystery, the theft of George Tate's beloved jade collection. Why was it stolen, and why did it happen the day after Tate's home was published in Gracious Abodes? The houseboy, Paolo, was set up as being the thief, but Quillerin never bought that theory. He thinks it's more likely to be an inside job because it had been so well planned. This passage: within a matter of 24 short hours, someone would have to A. read the description of the jades, and B. dream up the ideal of stealing them, and C. make elaborate preparations for a rather complex maneuver. So they would have to have gotten into the house without disturbing the family or servants, work out how to silently enter the ingeniously designed glass-covered niches, carefully pack the jades, and then transport the load without being seen. Quillerin sets his sights directly on Mr. Tate and does some digging. He finds an old Daily Fluxion newspaper clipping that covered a paternity trial involving George Tate and one of his servants. By all accounts, it was quite a sensational trial, resulting in the girl getting a settlement. The family likely tried to hush things up, but no details were spared, and Quillerin thinks that perhaps Tate's grudge against the Daily Flux grew into an obsession. When the Daily Flux offered to publish his house, he saw an opportunity for revenge. He could fake a theft, hide the jades, and let them be recovered after the feature was published to truly embarrass the newspaper. As well as embarrassing the Daily Fluxion, Quillerin suspected Tate would benefit from the insurance money because he had lost the family fortune and was in need of a large sum of money for yet another harebrained scheme. But the key to proving his theories depended on Quillerin finding the missing jade collection. There were several clues to solving this mystery: Coco taking a liking to licking photographs, Odd Bunson's highly detailed photographs, and the many references to a certain piece of furniture, Tate's old Biedermeier cupboard. David Like had told Quillerin earlier in the book that he was forced to keep Tate's old Biedermeier cupboard when he decorated the house. He asked Quillerin to call it an amoir when writing his piece for Gracious Abodes. Coco also bats his toy under the old Spanish chest in Harry Norton's apartment, and when fishing out the toy, Quillerin finds the jade button that Tate had given him, and I think this helps Quill to make the connection between the jade and the Biedermeier cupboard. And Coco licking the photograph brings Quillerin's attention to a slight crack in the side of Tate's Biedermeier and makes him think that perhaps there was a secret compartment, a perfect place to stash a supposedly stolen collection of jade, and we later find out that he was absolutely right. And finally, the third mystery, which was the murder of decorator David Like. So who murdered David Like and why? Well, I think the first clever clue is in his name, David Like. David had changed his name from an unspellable, unpronounceable last name to Like, L-Y-K-E, as he apparently thought this would make him more likable. David was indeed liked. In fact, he was too well liked, and this led to his demise. Like was very popular with the ladies, particularly those in their middle years, although it turns out he also had had a dalliance with the younger Cokie. But the woman who pulled the trigger was Harry Neughton's soon-to-be ex-wife, Natalie Neughton. Natalie was completely in love with David and believed that he would marry her as soon as she secured a divorce from her husband. She was so sure that she accepted Harry's terms for the divorce, which were no access to the children and no financial gain or support. Natalie also believed that Like was going to provide her with commissions for her weaves through his decorating business, and this would provide her with financial stability. But in a later conversation, David Like tells Quillerin that he was only helping Natalie out of friendship and that her work was that of an amateur. The night David is murdered, we know he has a date. Did Natalie stumble upon this date? We don't know for sure, but we do know that at some point, Natalie has realised that David does not love her and has no intention of marrying her, and so she shoots him, and 24 hours later, she commits suicide. Coco was in David's apartment when the fatal shot was fired, and he apparently ate some wool. As well as taking a liking to licking photographs, Coco had also taken a liking to chewing fabric. The wool in question was yellowish pink wool with a gold metallic thread running through it, and was clearly from the hand-woven dress that Natalie had worn to the party. Coco had later upchucked the wool, and Quillerin found the dried-up deposit when fishing from the toy Coco had conveniently battered under the old Spanish chest. Quillerin promptly informed the police of his find. They went to Natalie's apartment and found her deceased. Apparently it was all explained in her diary. I felt so sad for Natalie Neughton. She was such a tragic character. And it was such a shame because she had everything before she fell in love with David Like, but she threw it all away. Well, that's it for this episode of The Cat Who Project. My name is Rohan. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next episode. Thanks for listening. Bye.